The sun was setting over Pine Grove neighborhood, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple as Andre walked home from boxing practice. Sweat still clung to his forehead despite the cool evening breeze, and his gym bag hung heavy on his shoulder. At 17, he carried himself with quiet confidence, his lean frame moving with the easy grace of someone who knew his own strength but had no need to show it. 3 years of training under Coach Wilson had transformed Andre from a shy freshman into a disciplined athlete. The old coach, with his weathered face and hands that had thrown thousands of punches in his day, saw something special in Andre right from the start. "You got natural timing, kid," he'd said during Andre's first week at the gym. But timing ain't nothing without hard work. And hard work became Andre's religion. Every day after school, while other teens hung out at the mall or played video games, Andre wrapped his hands and hit the heavy bag. Jab, cross, hook, again and again until his shoulders burned and his knuckles felt raw even through the wraps. Coach Wilson would stand nearby, arms crossed, occasionally barking out corrections or, more rarely, grunting in approval. "Keep your guard up. Pivot on that back foot. Good, now double up that jab." Today's training had been particularly intense. Regional championships were coming up in just 2 weeks, and Coach Wilson pushed Andre harder than ever. "You're getting too predictable with that right hand," the coach had told him. "Mix it up. Body shots, then go high. Keep 'em guessing." Andre smiled at the memory as he cut through Pine Grove Park. This shortcut would save him 10 minutes, getting him home in time for dinner with his mom and little brother. His mom worked double shifts at the hospital as a nurse, and family dinners were rare treasures. Missing one wasn't an option. The park was usually peaceful this time of evening. A few dog walkers, maybe some kids shooting hoops at the court near the east entrance, but lately things had changed. A group of bikers had started hanging around, drinking and harassing people who passed by. Most folks in the neighborhood had started taking the long way around, but Andre wasn't one to be easily intimidated. He noticed the change in atmosphere as soon as he approached the central pavilion. The usual background noise of children playing and birds chirping was replaced by the rumble of motorcycle engines and loud, aggressive laughter. 5 bikes were parked haphazardly on the grass, their owners lounging around a picnic table covered in empty beer cans. Andre tightened his grip on his gym bag strap. Something told him to turn around, to take the long way home just this once. But that would mean being late for dinner, and besides, why should he have to change his route because of these guys? This was his neighborhood too. He took a deep breath and kept walking, his pace steady. Maybe they'd ignore him. Maybe they'd just let him pass. The first one to notice him was a tall, skinny guy with a patchy beard and arms covered in faded tattoos. He nudged the guy next to him, a heavy-set man with a shaved head and sunglasses despite the fading daylight. Soon all 5 pairs of eyes were fixed on Andre. Well, what do we have here? The man with the shaved head stood up, draining his beer can before crushing it in his fist. His leather vest was covered in patches, some with symbols that made Andre's stomach tighten. Andre kept walking, eyes forward, pretending not to hear. Just another 100 yards and he'd be past them, back on the residential streets where neighbors might see if anything happened. "Hey, I'm talking to you, boy." The man's voice hardened, the word boy coming out like something dirty. Andre still didn't respond, but he was painfully aware of the sound of boots on gravel as the bikers began to move toward him. His heart rate picked up, but his breathing remained controlled, just like in the ring when facing a tough opponent. "You deaf or something?" Another voice, this one belonging to a red-haired guy with a scraggly beard. "The boss is talking to you." Andre finally stopped walking. Running would only make things worse. He turned slowly to face the approaching men, his expression neutral despite the adrenaline now coursing through his veins. "Just heading home," he said calmly. "Not looking for any trouble." This earned a chorus of mocking laughter from the group. The man with the shaved head, apparently their leader, stepped closer. He was shorter than Andre by an inch or two, but outweighed him by at least 50 pounds of beer and bad intentions. "Hear that, boys? He's not looking for trouble." The leader grinned, revealing a gold tooth. "Funny thing is, trouble might be looking for him." The other bikers spread out slightly, forming a loose semicircle around Andre. His mind quickly assessed the situation just as Coach Wilson had taught him. 5 opponents, the leader directly in front. 2 on the left, 2 on the right. The pavilion behind them. Clear path ahead if he could break through. "Nice bag you got there," said the leader, pointing to Andre's gym bag. "What's in it? Something worth sharing?" Just sweaty clothes and boxing gloves, Andre replied truthfully. Nothing you'd want. The leader's eyebrows raised slightly at the mention of boxing gloves, but the sneer never left his face. Boxing gloves, huh? You fancy yourself a fighter? One of the other bikers, a lanky guy with a neck tattoo, laughed. Look at his face, man. Not a mark on him. Bet he just carries those gloves to look tough. Andre remained silent. Let them underestimate him. Coach Wilson always said that was an advantage. Cat got your tongue, boy? The leader asked, taking another step closer. Andre could smell beer and cigarettes on his breath, I told you. I'm just heading home. Andre's voice remained steady, but his muscles tensed. Ready? Maybe we should check that bag anyway, the leader said, reaching out a hand. Maybe teach you some manners about walking through our park. Your park? Andre couldn't help but respond. Last I checked, this park belongs to everyone in Pine Grove. The leader's face darkened. You got a smart mouth on you. I don't like smart mouths. A flicker of movement in his peripheral vision told Andre that one of the other bikers was trying to circle behind him. Classic predator behavior. He shifted his stance slightly, maintaining awareness of all 5 men while keeping his focus primarily on the leader. Look, I don't want any problems, Andre said, taking a small step back. I'm already late for dinner. My mom's expecting me. Oh, hear that, boys? Mama's boy needs to get home for dinner. The leader looked around at his friends, who all chuckled on cue. Well, you should have thought of that before you walked into our territory. Andre noticed a few people at the far end of the park glance in their direction, then hurriedly walk away. No help coming from there. He was on his own. The leader seemed to grow impatient with the verbal exchange. Give me the bag, he demanded, his voice dropping to a growl. No, Andre said simply. That single word hung in the air between them. The leader's eyes narrowed, clearly not used to being refused. What did you just say to me? I said no. Andre's voice was firm but not aggressive. This is my property and I'm going home now. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the leader looked at his friends and nodded. They began to close in. Andre's training kicked in automatically. He widened his stance slightly, centering his weight. His hands remained at his sides but ready. His breathing remained deep and controlled. Last chance, kid, the leader said, cracking his knuckles. Drop the bag and maybe we only rough you up a little. Andre knew there was no avoiding what was coming next. These men had chosen him as their target for the evening, and nothing he could say would change that. But what they couldn't know, was that they had picked the wrong target. For 3 years, Andre had trained 6 days a week. For 3 years, he had sparred with guys bigger and stronger than him. For 3 years, he had learned to take a punch and, more importantly, how to give one back with interest. His record in the youth boxing league stood at 15 wins, no losses. 12 of those wins came by knockout. Coach Wilson said he had the fastest hands he'd seen in 20 years of training fighters. None of this showed on Andre's face as the bikers closed in. To them, he was just a kid who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. A kid who was about to learn a harsh lesson about the way the world really worked. Little did they know, they were the ones about to get schooled. As the sun dipped below the horizon and shadows lengthened across Pine Grove Park, Andre felt a strange calm settle over him. Time seemed to slow down, just like it did in the ring when he was in the zone. He could see everything clearly, the leader's right hand clenching into a fist, the slight shift in weight as he prepared to throw the first punch, the confident smirks on the faces of his friends who expected this to be over quickly. They had no idea what was coming, and in that moment, as the leader took his final step forward with bad intentions written all over his face, Andre knew something these men didn't. He was ready. Not just ready to defend himself, but ready to show them exactly why picking on a teenager walking through the park had been the biggest mistake they would make that day. Or maybe any day. The bikers moved like wolves circling prey, their boots crunching on the gravel as they tightened the ring around Andre. The fading sunlight glinted off chrome bike parts and the metal studs on their leather jackets. The park had emptied quickly once people noticed the brewing confrontation, leaving Andre alone with the 5 men. I like your sneakers too, said the leader, his gold tooth catching the last rays of sunlight as he smiled. What are those, some kind of special boxing shoes? Andre glanced down at his worn athletic shoes. Nothing special. Just comfortable footwear with good support for training. Just regular shoes, he replied, keeping his voice even. The red-haired biker revved his motorcycle engine, creating a wall of noise that echoed through the park. Andre recognized the tactic: intimidation through sound and movement, trying to rattle him and cloud his thinking. "You know what I think?" The leader continued, taking another step closer. "I think you're on our turf and there's a toll for passing through." "This is a public park," Andre repeated, standing his ground. "There's no toll." The leader's smile vanished. "There is if we say there is." He poked Andre hard in the chest with a thick finger. "And we say there is." The other bikers laughed, a harsh sound that held no humor, just anticipation of what they thought would come next. An easy target, quick entertainment. Another story to tell while drinking later that night. Andre took a deep breath. Coach Wilson's voice echoed in his head. "Stay calm. Assess. React. Don't overreact." 3 years of training had taught him patience and control. The leader mistook this patience for fear, which only emboldened him. Bag, shoes, phone, wallet, now. Each word came out as a command, each one accompanied by another poke to Andre's chest. The bikers had formed a complete circle now. The skinny one with the patchy beard pulled out a switchblade, clicking it open with practiced ease. The sound was meant to frighten, and on most people it would have worked. "You deaf boy." The leader grabbed Andre's gym bag strap and yanked. Andre held firm, not letting go of his bag. "I told you I'm just walking home." The leader's face flushed red with anger and wounded pride. Being defied by a teenager, and a black teenager at that, wasn't something he was used to. He turned to his friends. "Looks like we got ourselves a tough guy here." Then back to Andre. "You know what happens to tough guys in our park?" Without waiting for an answer, he swung a meaty fist aimed straight at Andre's face. It was a telegraphed punch, the kind thrown by someone used to overwhelming opponents with size rather than skill. For Andre, it might as well have been moving in slow motion. 3 years of sparring and competition had honed his reflexes to a razor's edge. He slipped the punch with a slight movement of his head, the leader's fist passing harmlessly through the space where his face had been a split second before. The momentum of the missed punch threw the leader slightly off balance. Surprise registered on his face. Clearly he had expected to connect. Expected Andre to go down immediately or at least stagger back. "What the?" he started to say. But Andre was already moving. Years of practice took over. Andre didn't think. He reacted. A textbook jab-cross combination launched from his perfect stance. His left fist connected with the leader's nose, and before the man could process that pain, Andre's right hand delivered a cross punch to the jaw with the full force of his rotating hips behind it. The leader's head snapped back. His knees buckled. He stumbled backward and fell hard onto the gravel path, blood already streaming from his nose. Silence fell over the group. 4 pairs of eyes stared in disbelief, darting between their fallen leader and the teenager who still stood calmly before them, hands now raised in a classic boxing guard position. "He sucker punched me," the leader groaned, struggling to get to his feet, blood dripping onto his leather vest. "Get him!" The biker with the switchblade moved first, slashing the knife through the air in Andre's direction. Andre stepped back, creating distance. The knife was a game changer. Coach Wilson had always emphasized that no victory was worth getting stabbed. "You're gonna regret that." "Kid," snarled the knife wielder, advancing slowly. 2 more bikers moved to flank Andre, while the 4th helped their leader to his feet. Andre kept moving, maintaining space, eyes constantly scanning, mind calculating. 1 opponent with a knife, 2 more closing in, and 2 others regrouping. Not good odds. "Look, I don't want trouble," Andre said, continuing to backpedal. "Just let me walk away and we can forget this happened." "Too late for that," the red-haired biker growled. "Nobody touches Big Mike and walks away." So the leader had a name, Big Mike. Currently, Big Mike was wiping blood from his face with the back of his hand, his eyes burning with humiliation and rage. "Hold him," Big Mike ordered. "I'm gonna teach this kid what happens when you disrespect the road demons." Road demons. So they had a name too. Andre filed that away in case he survived to tell the police. The knife wielder lunged forward, blade glinting. Andre sidestepped, but not completely. The knife sliced through his t-shirt sleeve, barely missing the skin beneath. "Almost got you," the man sneered, preparing for another thrust. Andre knew he needed to disarm him quickly. The next slash came, a wild horizontal swipe. Andre timed it perfectly. dipping under the arc of the blade and surging forward with a textbook left hook to the man's liver. The effect was immediate. The knife wielder's face contorted in pain, the blade dropping from his fingers as both hands instinctively went to his midsection. Andre followed with a right uppercut that connected with the underside of the man's chin, sending him sprawling backward onto the ground beside his still-dazed leader. 2 down, 3 to go. The remaining bikers looked at each other, their confidence clearly shaken. This was not going according to plan. The skinny teen they had thought would be easy prey was proving to be anything but. "He's some kind of professional fighter," one of them muttered. "I don't care if he's Mike Tyson." Big Mike snarled, finally back on his feet. "Nobody does this to us. Nobody." He reached behind his back and pulled out something that made Andre's blood run cold. A small handgun. "Not so tough now, are you, boxing boy?" Big Mike said, a twisted smile spreading across his bloody face. Andre froze. All his training, all his skills meant nothing against a bullet. Just then a police siren wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Someone must have called the cops after all. Panic flashed across Big Mike's face. He was already bleeding, already had assaulted a minor, and now he was brandishing an illegal firearm. Even in his rage-filled state, he seemed to realize that the situation had escalated beyond what he had intended. "This isn't over," he growled, tucking the gun back into his waistband. "Boys, we're moving out." The bikers scrambled to their motorcycles, the 2 Andre had knocked down being helped by their friends. The engines roared to life just as blue and red lights began to flash at the park's entrance. "We know your face," Big Mike shouted over the engine noise. "This isn't finished." With that, the bikers peeled out across the grass, heading for the park's rear exit, away from the approaching police car. Andre stood rooted to the spot, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. His hands were shaking now that the immediate danger had passed. He had trained for competition, for sport, not for street fights against armed thugs. The reality of how badly the situation could have ended hit him all at once. The police car pulled up on the path and 2 officers quickly got out, flashlights scanning the area. "You okay, son?" asked the older officer, a heavy-set man with salt and pepper hair. His nameplate read Officer Powell. "Yes, sir," Andre replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Was that the road demons we just saw tearing out of here?" asked the younger officer, already speaking into his radio, presumably to alert other units about the fleeing bikers. Andre nodded. "They tried to rob me. Things got complicated." Officer Powell looked Andre up and down, noting the torn sleeve and the defensive stance he was still unconsciously holding. "You don't look too worse for wear. Want to tell us what happened?" Andre finally relaxed his posture, letting his hands drop to his sides. "I was walking home from boxing practice. They surrounded me, demanded my stuff. Their leader, a guy they called Big Mike, took a swing at me. And," prompted Officer Powell, "and I defended myself. I boxed competitively. I hit him and he went down. Then one of them pulled a knife and I had to defend myself again." The younger officer whistled low. "You took down 2 road demons by yourself? Kid, those guys are bad news. They've been terrorizing this area for weeks." "They pulled a gun right before you showed up," Andre added. "If you hadn't come when you did." Officer Powell's expression darkened. "A gun? That escalates things considerably." He pulled out a notepad. "We're going to need a full statement. And you should know, these guys have a reputation for holding grudges. If they threatened you, we should take that seriously." As Andre began giving his statement, more police cars arrived. The park was soon lit up with flashlights as officers searched the area for evidence. One found the switchblade that had been dropped during the confrontation. "This matches the description of a knife used in a convenience store robbery last week," said one officer, carefully bagging the weapon. Andre's mind was racing. What had started as a simple walk home had turned into something far more serious. The road demons weren't just park bullies. They were actual criminals with weapons and violent histories. And now they knew his face, knew he had fought back, knew he would be talking to the police. His phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from his mother asking where he was. Dinner was getting cold. How could he explain all this to her? How could he tell her that a gang of bikers now had a vendetta against him? As if reading his thoughts, Officer Powell placed a reassuring hand on Andre's shoulder. "We'll have a patrol car drive you home and explain the situation to your parents. and we'll increase patrols in this area and around your neighborhood for the next few weeks." Andre nodded gratefully, but a knot of worry had formed in his stomach. The road demons had escaped, and Big Mike's final words echoed in his mind. This isn't finished. He knew with cold certainty that this confrontation was just the beginning. The bikers would be looking for revenge, looking to salve their wounded pride. And next time, they would come prepared. As he climbed into the back of Officer Powell's patrol car, Andre realized that all his boxing matches, all his training sessions, all the sparring rounds and conditioning exercises, none of it had prepared him for the reality of actual violence, of genuine danger. Coach Wilson had taught him how to fight within rules, within boundaries. But the road demons didn't play by any rules. They fought dirty. They fought with weapons. They fought with the intent to do real harm. For the first time since he had started boxing, Andre felt genuine fear. Not the butterflies before a match or the healthy respect for a skilled opponent, but true fear for his safety and the safety of his family. The patrol car pulled away from the park, heading toward his home. Through the window, Andre watched the now empty park recede into the distance. The place that had been a simple shortcut just an hour ago now seemed ominous, dangerous. One thing was certain. He would never see Pine Grove Park the same way again. And neither would the road demons. They had come looking for an easy target and instead found someone who could fight back. They had underestimated him once. Andre doubted they would make that mistake again. The next morning, Andre sat at the kitchen table, pushing scrambled eggs around his plate without much appetite. His mother watched him with worried eyes as she packed lunches for him and his younger brother. "You've barely touched your breakfast," she said, pausing her efficient movements. "Are you still thinking about what happened yesterday?" Andre nodded. After the police had driven him home and explained everything to his mother, she'd been understandably upset. Not at him, she made that clear, but at the situation, at the danger he'd faced. "I'm fine, Mom," he said, forcing himself to take a bite. Just thinking, his 12-year-old brother Tyler was less subtle with his reaction. "My brother beat up 2 bikers," he exclaimed for perhaps the 10th time since last night. "That's so cool." "It's not cool," their mother corrected firmly. "It was dangerous, and your brother is lucky he wasn't seriously hurt." She turned to Andre. "Officer Powell called this morning while you were in the shower. They haven't caught those men yet, but they're looking. He said to tell you to be extra careful for the next few days." Andre nodded again. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the confrontation over and over. The missed punch, the feel of his fist connecting with Big Mike's face, the flash of the knife, the gun, the threats. "I'm taking a different route to school," he said, "and I'll come straight home after practice." His mother set his lunch bag in front of him. "Coach Wilson called too. He said he wants to talk to you before training today." Of course he did. The police would have contacted him as well. Coach Wilson was more than just a boxing trainer to Andre. He was a mentor, a guide. In many ways, since Andre's father had left 5 years ago, Coach had become the man he looked up to most. The walk to school was tense. Andre found himself scanning every street corner, eyeing every motorcycle with suspicion. A few of his classmates had already heard about the incident. News traveled fast in their neighborhood, and he was met with a mix of awed stares and concerned questions throughout the day. By the time the final bell rang, Andre was exhausted from maintaining his guard all day, but he still had boxing practice, and he still had to face Coach Wilson. The Pine Grove boxing gym was a converted warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. Faded posters of famous fighters lined the walls. Speed bags and heavy bags hung from sturdy frames, and the centerpiece was a well-worn boxing ring that had seen thousands of rounds over the years. The smell of sweat and leather permeated everything. Coach Wilson was waiting when Andre arrived, earlier than the other boxers would show up for the team practice. He was a compact man in his 60s with close-cropped gray hair and dark skin weathered by years of sun. Despite his age, his forearms were still corded with muscle, testament to a lifetime in the sport. "Sit down, son," he said, patting the ring apron beside him. Andre dropped his gym bag and complied, bracing himself for a lecture about avoiding trouble or using his skills responsibly. Instead, Coach Wilson surprised him. "Tell me exactly what happened," he said. "Not the version you told the police or your mama. I want to hear the boxer's version." So Andre told him everything, in the technical language of their shared sport. How he'd recognized the telegraphed right hand from Big Mike. How he'd slipped it and countered with the jab-cross combination they'd been drilling for months. How he'd timed the liver shot on the knife wielder when the man overextended. Coach Wilson listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, his expression unreadable. And if those cops hadn't shown up when they did? He finally asked when Andre finished. Andre looked down at his hands. He had a gun, Coach. I don't know what I would have done. Coach Wilson was quiet for a long moment. Then he patted Andre's shoulder. You did good, son. You defended yourself with the skills you've worked hard to develop. You kept your head when things got ugly. Another pause. But now we need to talk about what comes next. Andre looked up. What do you mean? Those road demons. They're not going to let this go. A crew like that getting shown up by a teenager, their reputation takes a hit. They'll want payback. The police are looking for them, Andre said, though without much conviction. Coach Wilson snorted. Sure they are. And maybe they'll catch them, maybe they won't, but either way, you need to be ready. Ready for what? For whatever comes next. Coach stood up and walked to a cabinet at the back of the gym. He returned with what looked like a thick book but turned out to be a case. He opened it to reveal a set of brass knuckles nestled in foam. Coach, I can't. You can and you will. Coach Wilson cut him off. These were mine back when I was coming up in a neighborhood a lot like this one. I never had to use them. Just knowing I had them gave me confidence. And sometimes confidence is all you need. Andre stared at the brass knuckles. Using something like that in the ring would get him immediately disqualified and banned. Using them on the street could land him in serious trouble, maybe even jail. I'm not saying go looking for a fight, Coach Wilson continued as if reading his thoughts. I'm saying be prepared if a fight comes looking for you. There's no referee out there, no rules. Those bikers sure weren't fighting fair. Andre hesitantly reached for the brass knuckles, feeling their solid weight. Coach Wilson closed the case and handed the whole thing to him. Keep them in your bag. Don't flash them around. Best if nobody knows you have them, including your mama. With luck, you'll never need to take them out of that case. He fixed Andre with a serious look. But if you do need them, don't hesitate. Practice that day was different. Coach Wilson pushed Andre harder than ever before, focusing on defensive movement, on fighting from corners, on dealing with multiple opponents. The other young boxers noticed the special attention but knew better than to comment. As Andre was leaving after practice, Coach Wilson called out to him one last time. Remember, son, out there it's not about winning trophies or looking good. It's about getting home safe. Those words echoed in Andre's mind as he took a different route home, one that added 15 minutes to his walk, but avoided Pine Grove Park entirely. The weight of the brass knuckles in his bag was a constant reminder of the reality he now faced. For the next 3 days, Andre was vigilant. He varied his routes to and from school and practice. He stayed in groups whenever possible. He kept his phone charged and ready to dial 911 at a moment's notice. Tops by the 4th day, no sign of the road demons had appeared. Officer Powell called to say they had arrested one of the gang members on an unrelated charge, but hadn't located Big Mike or the others yet. Andre began to wonder if perhaps they had moved on, found easier targets, forgotten about him. That hope was shattered on Friday afternoon. Andre was leaving school alone, having stayed late to make up a chemistry test. The parking lot was nearly empty, most students and teachers already gone for the weekend. He was halfway to the street when he heard the distinctive rumble of motorcycle engines. 3 bikes pulled up at the school entrance, blocking his path. Big Mike was immediately recognizable, his nose still swollen and bruised from their encounter. With him were the red-haired biker and a new face, a heavily tattooed man with a shaved head. Andre froze, then glanced around quickly. The school security guard had already left his post. The few remaining cars in the lot belonged to teachers still in the building, too far away to hear if he called for help. He could run back to the school, but that would mean turning his back on men who had already threatened him with a gun. Not a good option. Well, well, Big Mike called out, cutting his engine. Look who we found. The boxing boy. Andre said nothing, but his hand moved to his gym bag, feeling for the outline of Coach Wilson's case. You embarrassed me in front of my crew, Big Mike continued, dismounting from his bike. Made me look weak. That's bad for business in my line of work. I was just defending myself, Andre said, keeping his voice steady despite his racing heart. You threw the first punch. Big Mike's face darkened. And I'm going to throw the last one too. He motioned to his companions. Spread out. Don't let him slip away this time. The bikers dismounted and began to fan out, creating a semicircle around Andre. Unlike in the park, there was nowhere to retreat to. No police sirens coming to the rescue. I see you're not carrying your gym bag this time, Big Mike said with a cruel smile. No boxing gloves to hide behind. Andre didn't correct him. Let them think he was unarmed. Let them underestimate him again. We can do this one of two ways, Big Mike continued. You can take the beating you've got coming like a man, or we can make this a lot worse. Your choice. Andre set his bag down slowly, keeping his eyes on all three men. I don't want to fight you. Should have thought of that before you broke my nose. Big Mike cracked his knuckles. Hold him, he said to his companions. As the other two bikers moved toward him, Andre made his decision. He wasn't going to be a victim. He wasn't going to let these men hurt him or terrorize his neighborhood anymore. With a quick movement, he reached into his bag and pulled out the brass knuckles, slipping them onto his right hand. Big Mike's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with renewed anger. So the boxer brought a weapon this time. That just means we get to hurt you worse before we're done. The red-haired biker pulled out a chain from his belt, wrapping it around his fist. The tattooed newcomer produced a small bat from inside his jacket. Andre took a deep breath, centering himself just as he did before a match. Time seemed to slow down again as his training took over. 3 opponents armed, no referee, no rules, just like Coach Wilson had prepared him for all week. The tattooed biker moved first, swinging the bat in a wide arc. Andre ducked under it and closed the distance, delivering a quick jab to the man's ribs with his unencumbered left hand. The biker grunted in pain but didn't go down. The red-haired man swung his chain, the metal links whistling through the air. Andre barely managed to sidestep, feeling the wind of its passage against his cheek. He countered with a hook that connected solidly with the man's temple, the brass knuckles adding devastating force to the blow. The red-haired biker staggered sideways, dazed. Big Mike charged forward with a roar, both fists swinging wildly. Andre backpedaled, looking for an opening, conscious of the other 2 bikers regrouping. It was 3 against 1, and they all had weapons. The odds weren't good, but Andre had something they didn't: years of disciplined training and the calm focus that came with it. He waited for Big Mike to overextend, then stepped in with a perfect cross-counter, the brass knuckles connecting with the already damaged nose. There was a sickening crunch and Big Mike howled in pain, blood streaming down his face for the second time in a week. The tattooed biker swung his bat again, this time connecting with Andre's shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm, but he managed to stay on his feet, spinning away from a follow-up swing. The school doors burst open, and a teacher's voice called out, "What's going on out here?" The momentary distraction was all Andre needed. He landed a crushing body blow on the tattooed biker, driving the air from the man's lungs and doubling him over. "Cops are coming," yelled the red-haired biker who had recovered enough to realize their vulnerable position. Big Mike, blood streaming between the fingers covering his face, glared at Andre with pure hatred. "This isn't over," he snarled. The same threat he'd made in the park. "Yes, it is," Andre replied, standing his ground despite the throbbing pain in his shoulder. "Next time I'm not holding back." The bikers retreated to their motorcycles, the tattooed man still struggling to catch his breath. They roared away just as 2 teachers reached Andre's side. "Are you hurt?" asked one, a woman Andre recognized from the math department. "Who were those men?" "I'm okay," Andre said, discreetly slipping the brass knuckles back into his bag. "They're just some guys who've been causing trouble around the neighborhood." The male teacher was already on his phone, presumably calling the police. "They attacked you right on school grounds," he said incredulously. "Did you know them?" Andre shook his head, watching the dust cloud left by the departing motorcycles. "They knew me." Within minutes, a police car arrived, and Andre found himself once again explaining what had happened, though with strategic omissions about the brass knuckles. The officers took his statement and promised to patrol the area more heavily. "You seem to have made some serious enemies," said one officer.
Any idea why they're targeting you specifically?
Andre thought about it. I think it's because I stood up to them. Most people around here are too scared to do that." The officer nodded thoughtfully. "Well, we'll do what we can to find them. In the meantime, don't go anywhere alone if you can help it." After the police left, Andre called his mother to explain why he'd be late coming home. He downplayed the confrontation, not wanting to worry her more than necessary. Then he called Coach Wilson. "They came back," he said simply when the coach answered. "Are you hurt?" Coach Wilson's voice was sharp with concern. "Just my shoulder. Nothing broken. Come to the gym, now." When Andre arrived, Coach Wilson was waiting with a first aid kit and an ice pack. He examined Andre's shoulder with gentle but knowing fingers. "Nothing torn," he pronounced. "Just bruised. Ice it tonight, take it easy for a couple days." He fixed Andre with a serious look. "You used what I gave you?" Andre nodded, and it worked. But they had weapons too. A chain, a bat. Coach Wilson's expression darkened. "They're escalating. Next time could be worse." Andre sank onto a bench, suddenly exhausted. "What am I supposed to do, Coach? I can't keep looking over my shoulder forever." Coach Wilson sat beside him. "No, you can't, and you shouldn't have to." He was quiet for a moment, thinking. "These road demons, they operate through fear. Most folks are too scared to stand against them, so they get away with whatever they want." "I'm not afraid of them," Andre said, though it wasn't entirely true. "Maybe you should be. A healthy fear keeps you sharp." Coach Wilson leaned forward. "But there's a difference between being afraid and being controlled by fear. You've shown them twice now that you won't be controlled. That makes you dangerous to them." "Dangerous how?" "If one person stands up, others might follow. Their whole power structure depends on nobody challenging them." Coach Wilson's eyes took on a distant look. "I've seen crews like this before. They seem untouchable until suddenly they're not." Andre considered this. "So what's my next move?" Coach Wilson handed him the ice pack. "For tonight? You go home, you rest that shoulder, you stay safe. For tomorrow and the days after?" He shrugged. "That depends on what kind of man you want to be." As Andre walked home in the fading light, his shoulder throbbing despite the ice pack, he thought about Coach Wilson's words. What kind of man did he want to be? One who hid from danger? One who fought back when cornered? Or something else entirely? He didn't have an answer yet. But he knew that whatever happened next, he wouldn't face it alone. He had his family. He had Coach Wilson. He had his training. And most importantly, he had shown himself that when pushed to the limit, he had the courage to stand his ground. Whether that courage would be enough for whatever came next remained to be seen. The weekend passed without incident, but Andre couldn't shake the feeling that something was building. The road demons had come after him twice now, each time with greater intensity, and each time they'd left with threats of worse to come. It was only a matter of time before they tried again. By Monday morning, word of Friday's confrontation in the school parking lot had spread throughout Pine Grove High. Students stared as Andre walked down the hallway, whispers following in his wake. Some looked at him with newfound respect, others with concern, and a few with outright fear, as if his troubles with the road demons might somehow spill over onto them. His closest friend, Darnell, caught up with him between classes. "Man, you've got the whole school talking," he said, falling into step beside Andre. "Is it true you took on 3 bikers at once?" Andre sighed. "It wasn't like that. I was just defending myself. That's not how Tyler tells it. Your little brother's been running around saying you're like some kind of superhero." Darnell's expression grew more serious. "For real though, are you okay?" "Those guys don't mess around." "I'm fine," Andre replied, rolling his shoulder to test it. The bruise had darkened over the weekend, but the pain had faded to a dull ache. "Just trying to keep my head down." Darnell glanced around at the staring students. "Too late for that, I think. You're officially famous now." Famous wasn't what Andre wanted to be. Famous made him a target, not just for the road demons, but for anyone looking to make a name for themselves. Every tough guy in school would be eyeing him, wondering if they could take the kid who stood up to the bikers. The day dragged on, each class blurring into the next as Andre struggled to focus on anything, besides the constant feeling of being watched. Even the teachers seemed to look at him differently, a mix of concern and uncertainty in their eyes. After school, he headed to the gym for practice, relieved to escape the whispers and stares. Boxing was straightforward, honest. In the ring, there were rules, structure. Everything made sense in a way the outside world didn't. Coach Wilson met him at the door. "How's the shoulder?" "Better," Andre said. "I can train." Coach nodded, but his expression remained serious. "Before you change, there's someone here to see you." Andre followed Coach to his small office at the back of the gym. Sitting in a folding chair, Notebook in hand was a woman in her 30s with short hair and sharp eyes. She stood as they entered. "Andre, this is Lisa Chen from the Pine Grove Gazette," Coach Wilson said. "She's doing a story on the road demons and their activities in the neighborhood." The reporter extended her hand. "I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about your encounters with them." Andre hesitated, looking to Coach Wilson for guidance. "It's your call," Coach said. "But I think it might be good for people to hear what's really been happening around here." Andre took a deep breath and shook the reporter's hand. "Okay, what do you want to know?" For the next half hour, Lisa Chen asked detailed questions about both confrontations. She recorded his answers on a small device and took notes by hand. Andre told her everything except for the brass knuckles. Some details were better left private. "You're not the first person they've targeted," Lisa said when he finished his account. "I've documented at least a dozen incidents over the past 3 months. Robberies, assaults, vandalism, but you're the first victim who's agreed to go on the record with their name." "Why's that?" Andre asked. "Fear," she replied simply. "The road demons have created a climate of fear in this neighborhood. People are afraid of retaliation if they speak out." She closed her notebook. "That's what makes your story so important." After she left, Andre changed for practice, his mind troubled. He hadn't considered the bigger picture, how these bikers were terrorizing the entire community, not just him. "You did good," Coach Wilson said as Andre wrapped his hands. "Sometimes shining a light on cockroaches is the best way to get rid of them." Practice that day was intense. Coach worked with Andre one-on-one, focusing on close quarters fighting, on breaking clinches, on dealing with opponents who didn't play by the rules. The other young boxers worked with assistant coaches, occasionally stealing glances at Andre's special training session. As they finished up, Coach Wilson pulled Andre aside. "I got a call from Officer Powell today. They arrested another one of the road demons, the one with the red hair, found drugs and stolen property in his apartment." Andre felt a small surge of relief. "What about the others? What about Big Mike? Still looking for them?" Coach's expression was grim. "But now they'll be looking harder. That reporter's story is going to run tomorrow, and the police don't like bad publicity." Andre nodded, understanding the implication. His public statement would put pressure on the police to act, but it would also put an even bigger target on his back if the remaining road demons weren't caught quickly. "Don't go anywhere alone," Coach instructed. "Not until this is resolved." Andre promised, but he knew it would be difficult to keep. His mother worked long hours, and there were times when he had to pick up Tyler from the middle school or run errands on his own. The next day, Lisa Chen's article ran on the front page of the local section. The headline read, "Teen Boxer Stands Up to Notorious Biker Gang." There was no photo of Andre. Coach Wilson had insisted on that, but his name was there in black and white, along with quotes from his account of both confrontations. The article detailed other incidents attributed to the road demons and included comments from Officer Powell about increased police presence in the neighborhood. It ended with a quote from Andre that he didn't even remember saying. Nobody should have to live in fear in their own community. The reaction at school was immediate. Teachers praised his courage. Students who had never spoken to him before approached to offer support or share their own stories of encounters with the bikers. Even the principal called him to the office to commend his bravery, though he also expressed concern for Andre's safety. "We're increasing security around the school," the principal told him, "and I've arranged for a patrol car to be present during arrival and dismissal times for the next week." Andre thanked him, but inwardly he worried that these measures might not be enough. The road demons had shown they were willing to escalate each confrontation. What would they do now that he had publicly embarrassed them? He got his answer 2 days later. Andre was walking home from practice with Darnell. Coach Wilson had insisted he not travel alone, and Darnell had volunteered to be his unofficial bodyguard. They were taking the long way around Pine Grove Park, sticking to well-lit streets with plenty of witnesses. "You think they'll really come after you again?" Darnell asked as they turned onto Maple Street, just 4 blocks from Andre's house. "I don't know," Andre admitted. "Part of me hopes they just leave town, find somewhere else to cause trouble. But another part what?" Andre struggled to put his feelings into words. "Another part of me almost wants them to try something, just to end this one way or another. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder all the time." As if his words had summoned them, The sound of motorcycle engines rumbled in the distance, growing louder. "You've got to be kidding me," Darnell muttered, scanning the street. "You think that's them?" Andre didn't answer. He was already looking for escape routes, for defensive positions, for anything that might give them an advantage if the worst happened. The engines grew louder, and then 3 motorcycles rounded the corner ahead of them. Andre recognized Big Mike immediately, his nose still swollen and discolored. Beside him was the tattooed biker from the school parking lot. The third rider was new, a heavy-set man with a long beard. "That's them," Andre confirmed, dropping his gym bag and stepping slightly in front of Darnell. "When I tell you to run, you run. Don't argue. Man, I'm not leaving you." "Yes, you are," Andre cut him off. "Go for help. That's how you can really help me." The motorcycles slowed as they approached, then stopped, blocking the sidewalk ahead. Big Mike dismounted first, a twisted smile on his face. Well, the famous boxer of Pine Grove. He held up a folded newspaper, Lisa Chen's article. "Quite the celebrity now, aren't you?" Andre said nothing, but his hands curled into fists at his sides. His gym bag with the brass knuckles was at his feet, but reaching for it now would telegraph his intentions. "You've caused us a lot of problems," Big Mike continued, taking a step forward. "Cops raided our clubhouse yesterday. 2 more of my boys got picked up, all because you couldn't mind your own business." "You attacked me," Andre replied evenly. "Twice I defended myself. That's all." Big Mike's smile vanished. "And now you're running your mouth to reporters, making us look bad." "Making me look bad?" He pointed to his broken nose. "I owe you for this. And for Riley and Stitch getting arrested." The tattooed biker, presumably Stitch, dismounted as well, cracking his knuckles. The bearded newcomer remained on his bike, but his hand moved to something inside his jacket. Andre tensed, ready to move at the first sign of a weapon. Beside him, Darnell shifted nervously from foot to foot. "Last time was just business," Big Mike said, his voice dropping to a growl. "This time it's personal." He nodded to Stitch, who reached into his back pocket and pulled out brass knuckles similar to the ones Coach Wilson had given Andre. The message was clear. They had come prepared this time. "Run," Andre whispered to Darnell. Now, for once Darnell didn't argue. He turned and sprinted back the way they had come, pulling out his phone as he ran. "Your friend's smart," Big Mike remarked. "Smarter than you." Andre said nothing, his mind calculating odds and options. 3 against 1. At least one with brass knuckles. Possibly a gun or knife from the bearded biker. No cops conveniently driving by this time. He could run too, but they had motorcycles. They'd catch him easily. His only real option was to stand and fight, to try to hold them off long enough for Darnell to bring help. Big Mike seemed to read his thoughts. "Nobody's coming to save you this time, boxing boy. We made sure of that." The bearded biker revved his engine as if to emphasize the point. Andre took a deep breath, centering himself just as he did before stepping into the ring. Time seemed to slow again as his training took over. He widened his stance slightly, raised his hands to a defensive position. Big Mike laughed. "Look at him. Still thinks he's in a boxing match." He nodded to Stitch. "Show him what a real fight looks like." Stitch advanced, brass knuckles glinting in the late afternoon sun. He was bigger than Andre by at least 50 pounds, with the thick arms and shoulders of someone who had spent time in prison working out. But Andre had something Stitch didn't. 3 years of disciplined training under one of the best coaches in the state. 3 years of footwork drills, of sparring sessions, of learning to read an opponent's body language. As Stitch threw the first punch, a wild overhand right, Andre was already moving. He slipped to the side, the brass knuckles whistling past his ear, and countered with a perfectly timed left hook to the liver. Stitch grunted in pain but didn't go down. He was tougher than he looked. He swung again, this time with more control, forcing Andre to backpedal. "Get him!" Big Mike shouted from the sidelines. The bearded biker dismounted now, pulling what looked like a blackjack from inside his jacket. He circled to Andre's left, trying to flank him. Andre kept moving, using his footwork to maintain space, looking for openings. These weren't inexperienced street fighters like the first confrontation in the park. These men had been in real fights, had learned the hard way how to hurt people. Stitch lunged forward with another swing. Andre ducked under it and delivered a textbook 1-2 combination to the man's face. The punches landed clean, snapping Stitch's head back, but the big man absorbed the impact and kept coming. The bearded biker moved in from the side, swinging the blackjack in a short arc. Andre barely managed to sidestep the weapon grazing his arm. Pain flared, but he pushed it aside, focusing on the immediate threat. He was outnumbered and outarmed. His only advantage was skill and conditioning. He needed to make that count. As Stitch charged again, Andre timed a perfect counter, catching the bigger man with a right cross that connected flush on the jaw. Stitch's legs buckled and he went down to one knee, but the momentary victory cost Andre his positioning. The bearded biker was on him now, swinging the blackjack with practiced efficiency. Andre raised his arms to block, taking the impact on his forearms rather than his head. Then Big Mike joined the fray, rushing forward with a roar of anger. 3-on-1 now, and Andre was being driven back, forced to focus entirely on defense. A wild swing from the bearded biker left an opening. Andre exploited it with a quick jab to the throat that sent the man staggering backward, gasping for air. Stitch was back on his feet, blood streaming from his nose but still dangerous. Big Mike circled to Andre's right, looking for an opening. Andre's breathing remained controlled, his movements efficient, but he knew he couldn't keep this up forever. Eventually they would overwhelm him through sheer numbers. He needed to even the odds quickly. An idea formed in his mind, risky but potentially effective. He let himself appear more tired than he actually was, dropping his guard slightly, presenting an apparent opening. Big Mike took the bait, charging in with a haymaker aimed at Andre's head. It was exactly what Andre had been waiting for. He ducked under the punch and drove forward with all his weight behind a perfect right uppercut that caught Big Mike directly on his already damaged nose. There was a sickening crunch, and Big Mike howled in pain, blood gushing down his face. He staggered backward, hands clutching his ruined nose. One down, temporarily at least, the bearded biker, having recovered his breath, came at Andre with renewed fury, swinging the blackjack in tight, controlled arcs that were increasingly difficult to dodge. Andre backpedaled, looking for an opening, conscious of Stitch closing in from the other side. Then in the distance, the welcome sound of sirens cut through the air. The bearded biker hesitated, glancing toward the sound. "Cops!" Big Mike, still bleeding profusely, looked up with hatred burning in his eyes. "Finish him first." But the moment of hesitation had given Andre the opening he needed. He closed the distance to the bearded biker and unleashed a flurry of punches. Jab, cross, hook, uppercut. The combination he had drilled thousands of times in the gym. Each punch landed with precision, driving the bigger man backward until a final right cross sent him sprawling onto the pavement. 2 down. Stitch looked from his fallen companions to Andre, who stood ready despite his heaving chest and bruised arms. The sirens were getting closer now, maybe just a few blocks away. "We should go," Stitch said to Big Mike. "Now." Big Mike's face was a mask of blood and rage. "This isn't over," he snarled at Andre, the same threat he had made twice before. But this time, Andre had had enough. "Yes, it is," he said firmly. "It's over. The police have your friends. They know your names, your faces. Your clubhouse is gone. Every time you show up in Pine Grove, someone calls the cops. You're finished here." The confidence in his voice seemed to register with Stitch, who was already backing toward his motorcycle. "Mike, we gotta go now!" The bearded biker was struggling to his feet, dazed from Andre's combination. The sirens were very close now, and blue lights flashed at the intersection down the block. Big Mike stared at Andre for a long moment, blood dripping from his chin onto his leather vest. Then, without another word, he turned and limped back to his motorcycle. As the 3 bikers roared away, Andre sank to his knees, the adrenaline rush fading and leaving him suddenly exhausted. His arms throbbed where he had blocked the blackjack and his knuckles were raw and bleeding. But he was still standing, and somehow, deep in his gut, he knew Big Mike wouldn't be coming back. The road demons had finally met someone who wouldn't back down, wouldn't be intimidated. Combined with the police pressure from Lisa Chen's article, it was too much trouble for too little reward. The patrol car rounded the corner, followed by Darnell running at full sprint. Officer Powell leaped out before the car had fully stopped. "Are you hurt?" he asked, kneeling beside Andre. "What happened?" Andre looked up at the officer, then at Darnell, who had arrived beside them, panting from his run. "It's over," Andre said simply. "They're gone." And somehow he knew it was true. The road demons would find easier territory, somewhere people hadn't learned to stand up for themselves yet. But Pine Grove wasn't that place anymore. Not since a teenage boxer had shown everyone that even the most fearsome bullies could be defeated if you refused to live in fear. As Officer Powell helped him to his feet, Andre felt a weight lift from his shoulders. For the first time in 2 weeks, he could look forward to walking home without constantly checking over his shoulder, without wondering if today would be the day the road demons returned. The fight was finally over, and against all odds, he had won. The next morning, Andre woke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly. Groaning, he reached for it with a sore arm. Wincing as his bruised muscles protested the movement, the screen showed 15 missed calls and over 30 text messages, most from classmates and friends, who had somehow heard about yesterday's confrontation with the road demons. News traveled fast in Pine, where his mother appeared in the doorway, still in her nurse's scrubs from the night shift. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but her expression was resolute. "How are you feeling?" she asked, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Sore," Andre admitted. "But okay." She nodded, her fingers gently touching the bruise forming on his forearm. "Officer Powell called me at work. He told me what happened." Her voice wavered slightly. "He said you fought off 3 grown men." Andre looked down. "I didn't have much choice." "I know," she squeezed his hand. "I wish you didn't have to make those kinds of choices. I wish I could keep you safe all the time." She took a deep breath. "But I'm proud of you. Not for fighting, but for standing up for yourself, for not letting fear control you." Andre felt something tighten in his chest. Pride, relief, love. "Thanks, Mom." She stood up, straightening her scrubs. "I called the school. You're staying home today. Rest ice those bruises. Tyler and I will be here." She managed a tired smile. "No one's getting past your mama today." After she left to get some sleep, Andre checked his messages. Most were variations of, "Did you really fight the road demons again?" and "Are you okay?" But one stood out, a text from Lisa Chen of the Pine Grove Gazette. "Need to talk to you ASAP, big developments." "Call me." Curious, Andre called the reporter. "They got him," Lisa said without preamble when she answered. "Big Mike. Police picked him up at the hospital this morning. Broken nose, 2 cracked ribs, concussion. He's looking at multiple charges. Assault, attempted robbery, illegal weapons possession, and that's just the beginning." Andre sat up straighter, ignoring the protest from his sore muscles. "What about the others?" "The tattooed one, Stitch Miller is his real name, was already on parole. They arrested him at his girlfriend's apartment about an hour ago. The 3rd guy is still at large, but with the others in custody, it's just a matter of time." Andre let out a long breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It really was over. "My editor wants a follow-up story," Lisa continued. "Your confrontation yesterday, the arrest this morning, it's big news for Pine Grove. Would you be willing to talk to me again?" Andre hesitated. The first article had put a target on his back, but that was no longer a concern. Still, he wasn't sure he wanted more attention. "I'll think about it," he said finally. "But there's someone else you should talk to first. Coach Wilson at the Pine Grove boxing gym. None of this would have happened without him." After hanging up, Andre eased himself out of bed and made his way to the kitchen. Tyler was already there, pouring cereal into a bowl. He looked up as Andre entered, his eyes widening at the visible bruises. "Whoa," he said. "You look like you got hit by a truck." "Thanks," Andre replied dryly, reaching for the orange juice. "Just what every guy wants to hear." Tyler abandoned his cereal and came closer, examining the bruises with the fascination only a 12-year-old could muster. "Does it hurt?" "What do you think?" "I think it's awesome," Tyler declared. "My brother beat up the road demons. 3 times. Andre shook his head. "It's not awesome, Ty. Fighting is never awesome. Sometimes it's necessary, but it's never something to celebrate." Tyler's expression turned serious, unusual for his normally carefree face. "The kids at school are saying you're a hero. That nobody stood up to those guys before." Andre thought about that as he poured himself a glass of juice. Was he a hero? He hadn't set out to be one. He'd just been trying to get home safely to protect himself. But somewhere along the way it had become about more than that. It had become about refusing to live in fear, about showing others they could stand up too. "I'm not a hero," he told his brother. "I just did what I had to do." Tyler didn't look convinced, but he returned to his cereal without arguing. The rest of the day passed quietly. Andre applied ice to his bruises, caught up on homework, and fielded texts from concerned friends. Coach Wilson called to check on him and to share that the police had visited the gym, taking detailed statements about the road demons and their history of harassment in the neighborhood. "They're building a solid case," Coach said. "These guys won't be causing trouble for a long time." By evening, Andre was feeling restless. His mother had gone back to work for another night shift, and Tyler was engrossed in a video game. The walls of the house felt confining after a day spent inside. "I'm going for a walk," he told Tyler, "just around the block. I need some fresh air." Tyler looked up from his game, alarmed. "But Mom said I'll be fine," Andre assured him. "The road demons are in jail, remember? Besides, I won't go far. 20 minutes tops." Reluctantly, Tyler returned to his game, extracting a promise that Andre would text him every 5 minutes to confirm he was okay. Outside, the evening air was cool and refreshing. Andre walked slowly, mindful of his sore body but grateful for the freedom of movement. The neighborhood seemed different somehow, or maybe he was the one who had changed. His route took him past Pine Grove Park, the site of the first confrontation. He paused at the entrance, looking in at the pavilion where it had all started. A group of young kids were playing basketball on the court nearby, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Two mothers sat on a bench chatting as they watched their children on the swings. Normal, everyday scenes that would have been unthinkable just days ago when the road demons controlled the park. Quite a difference, isn't it? Andre turned to find Officer Powell standing beside him, hands in the pockets of his uniform pants. "I was just driving by, saw you standing here," the officer explained. "Thought I'd check in. How are you holding up?" "Better than yesterday," Andre replied. "I heard they arrested Big Mike and Stitch." Officer Powell nodded. "They're not going anywhere for a while. Big Mike had outstanding warrants in 3 counties. Stitch violated his parole. We'll get the third guy soon enough." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the basketball game. Then Officer Powell spoke again, his voice more serious. "What you did, it took courage. Not just to defend yourself, but to speak out. That article Ms. Chen wrote, with your quotes, it changed things. Got people talking. Got them angry enough to start calling in tips about the road demons. Without that, we might not have been able to build such a strong case." Andre hadn't thought about it that way. "I was just telling the truth. Sometimes that's the bravest thing you can do." Officer Powell clapped him lightly on the shoulder. "Not many adults would have handled this situation as well as you did, let alone a teenager. You should be proud." As the officer walked back to his patrol car, Andre continued his circuit of the neighborhood, his mind turning over the events of the past 2 weeks. 3 confrontations, 3 victories, not just for him but for the whole community. The road demons' reign of terror was over, and Pine Grove could begin to heal. When he returned home, Tyler was waiting anxiously by the door. "You're late," he accused. "And you only texted twice." "Sorry," Andre said, ruffling his brother's hair. "Got distracted talking to Officer Powell." Tyler's eyes widened. "Is everything okay? Are they back?" "Everything's fine," Andre assured him. "Better than fine, actually. The park is full of kids playing again. People are out walking their dogs, sitting on their porches. It's like the neighborhood is breathing again." That night, Andre slept better than he had in weeks, undisturbed by anxious dreams or worries about what the next day might bring. When he woke on Saturday morning, the soreness in his muscles had faded to a dull ache, and the bruises were already turning from angry purple to a healing yellowish green. His phone buzzed with a text from Coach Wilson. "Gym at 10, special meeting. Be there." Curious, Andre arrived at the Pine Grove boxing gym just before 10 to find it unusually crowded. All the young boxers from the team were there, along with their parents. Lisa Chen stood in one corner with a photographer. Officer Powell and 2 other police officers were chatting with Coach Wilson near the ring. "What's going on?" Andre asked Darnell, who was standing by the speed bags. "No idea," Darnell replied. "Coach just told everyone to be here." At exactly 10 o'clock, Coach Wilson climbed into the ring and raised his hands for silence. The buzz of conversation died down as everyone turned their attention to the weathered trainer. "Thank you all for coming," Coach began. "Most of you know what's been happening in our neighborhood these past few weeks. The road demons, the fear they spread, and most recently, their arrests." He paused, scanning the crowd until his eyes found Andre. "What you might not know is how big a role one of our own played in making Pine Grove safe again." Andre felt heat rise to his face as heads turned in his direction. "Andre didn't go looking for trouble," Coach Wilson continued. "Trouble found him. But when it did, he stood his ground. He used the skills he learned in this gym not to show off or to hurt others, but to protect himself and ultimately, to protect all of us. There was a murmur of agreement from the assembled crowd. The police tell me that thanks to Andre's willingness to speak out, to identify these men, to tell his story to the newspaper, they were able to build a case that will keep the road demons behind bars for a long time. Coach nodded to Officer Powell, who returned the gesture with a smile. But here's the thing, Coach went on, his voice growing more passionate. Andre didn't just show courage in the moment of danger. He showed a deeper kind of courage, the kind that stands up and says this isn't right, when it would be easier to stay silent. The kind that refuses to let fear dictate how we live our lives. He beckoned Andre forward. Reluctantly, feeling every eye in the place on him, Andre made his way to the ring. Coach Wilson extended a hand to help him through the ropes. I've been training boxers for over 40 years, Coach said, placing a hand on Andre's shoulder. And I've never been prouder of any fighter than I am of this young man right here. Not because of his record in the ring, impressive as it is, but because of what he did outside it. He showed us all what it means to be truly strong. The gym erupted in applause. Andre stood awkwardly, unused to being the center of such attention. As the clapping died down, Coach Wilson raised his hands again. Now, I didn't call you all here just to embarrass Andre, he said with a wink. I called you here because what happened with the road demons showed us something important. It showed us that our neighborhood has gotten too comfortable with fear, too willing to look the other way, too ready to think, that's someone else's problem. Nods of agreement rippled through the crowd. So I'm starting something new, Coach continued. The Pine Grove Community Defense Program. Free basic self-defense classes twice a week, right here in this gym, open to everyone in the neighborhood, kids, parents, grandparents. Not to turn you into fighters, but to help you feel safe, confident, and ready to protect yourselves and each other if needed. Lisa Chen was scribbling furiously in her notebook, clearly seeing another headline in the making. And I've asked Andre here to help me lead these classes, Coach said, giving Andre's shoulder a squeeze, because he's already shown us all how it's done. This was news to Andre, who looked at Coach in surprise. But as he thought about it, the idea resonated. Using what he'd learned to help others, to ensure that no one else would have to face what he had faced alone, it felt right. After the meeting broke up, people approached Andre one by one to thank him, to shake his hand, to share their own stories of encounters with the road demons. Parents told him how their children could play in the park again. Elderly neighbors explained how they had been virtual prisoners in their homes, afraid to go out when the bikers were around. One elderly woman gripped his hand with surprising strength. My grandson wants to learn to box now because of you, she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Not to fight, he says, but to be brave like Andre. By the time the gym cleared out, Andre was emotionally exhausted. He sat on the edge of the ring, watching as Coach Wilson swept up and Lisa Chen packed away her recording device. You okay with all this? Coach asked, leaning on his broom. I should have warned you about the community program idea, but I wasn't sure you'd come if you knew you'd be put on the spot. Andre smiled. It's a good idea. I'm in. Lisa approached them, notepad in hand. Mind if I use that as a quote for my follow-up article? Local teen boxer to lead community self-defense program? Go ahead, Andre said, finding to his surprise that the attention no longer bothered him as much. If his story could help others find their courage, then perhaps it was worth telling. As he walked home later that afternoon, Andre took the route through Pine Grove Park. The pavilion where he had first encountered the road demons was now occupied by a family having a picnic. Children played on the swings. An elderly couple walked their dog along the path, and two teenagers practiced skateboard tricks near the basketball courts. The park had been reclaimed by the community. The fear was gone. Andre paused at the spot where Big Mike had thrown that first punch, the punch that had started everything. It seemed like a lifetime ago, though in reality it had been less than 3 weeks. So much had changed in that short time, not just in the neighborhood, but in him as well. He had discovered something about himself in those 3 confrontations. Not just that he could fight, but that he could stand firm when it mattered. That courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. That one person refusing to be intimidated could inspire others to do the same. As he continued home, his phone buzzed with a text from Coach Wilson. Regional championships next Saturday. You ready? Andre smiled. After everything that had happened, the boxing tournament seemed almost mundane. But it was also a return to normalcy, to the structured competition of the ring rather than the chaotic danger of the streets. Ready? He texted back, and he was. Ready for the tournament. Ready for the community defense classes, ready for whatever came next. The road demons had taught him something valuable, though not in the way they intended. They had taught him that true strength came not from intimidating others, but from standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult, even when it was dangerous. As he reached his front door, Andre looked back at the neighborhood spread out before him, peaceful now, safe again. His neighborhood, worth fighting for, worth protecting. And if trouble ever came looking for Pine Grove again, it would find not just one boxer standing in its way, but an entire community that had learned how to stand together, unafraid. That was a legacy Andre could be proud of, far more than any trophy or championship belt. That was a victory that would last.